The summer parade was in full bloom. Streamers fluttered from rooftops, children clutched dripping popsicles, and families lined the sidewalks beneath a golden morning sun. On the main road of Willow Crest, a once peaceful HOA community, laughter and the bright notes of a brass band echoed off perfectly trimmed hedges and rows of identical beige houses. My daughter, Maya Bellamy, 9 years old and radiant in her lavender dress, wheeled herself proudly between 2 rows of applauding neighbors. Her lavender wheelchair, polished to a shine and decorated with delicate silk butterflies, gleamed like something royal under the morning light. Then came the silence. It started like a glitch in reality. One moment, pure joy. The next, crack. A single gunshot tore through the air, sharp and unnatural. Time froze. A bird burst from a tree. A child screamed. Maya's ribboned hair fluttered for just a second before her small body jerked back violently. A red stain bloomed across her shoulder, spreading down the armrest of her wheelchair like crimson ink soaking into lilac silk. Someone screamed her name. Another voice shouted, "She's been shot." I don't remember running. I only remember arriving on my knees beside her, my hands trembling as I pressed them against the wound, shouting for someone, anyone, to call an ambulance. Maya's eyes fluttered, her lips parting as if she were about to ask, "What just happened?" That's when I looked up and saw her. Judith Coleman, the HOA vice president, standing motionless near her porch, the gun still in her hand. No emotion, no remorse, just fury. Her lips curled, as if she were the one wronged. Her voice, cold and dripping with contempt, cut through the chaos. "I warned you about the wheelchair." Sirens wailed in the distance. But in that moment, there was only the color lavender, and the woman who believed it had no place in her community. My name is Dr. Nathan Bellamy. I'm a federal therapist, a father, and a decorated Army medic. I've treated wounds on battlefields. I've saved lives in tents soaked with sand and blood. But I never thought I'd be cradling my own child, shot by a neighbor, on a parade route in a quiet suburban neighborhood, all because her wheelchair didn't match the HOA's approved color scheme. And before you judge or dismiss this as some tragic misunderstanding, you need to understand, this wasn't about the chair. This was about control, power, and the horrifying truth that monsters don't always lurk in shadows. Sometimes, they live right next door, disguised in neat cardigans, HOA badges, and freshly clipped lawns. This is the story of how our American dream turned into a lavender-stained nightmare. 6 months before the parade, we thought we had found peace. After 2 decades in military service, 10 of them spent in field hospitals stitching up shrapnel wounds and stabilizing young soldiers in helicopters, I hung up my uniform and moved my family to Willow Crest, a gated community nestled on the edge of Ashford Hills. It promised calm, recovery, healing, especially for Maya. 2 years earlier, a drunk driver had run a red light and changed her life forever. She survived, but she'd never walk again. Still, her spirit remained unbreakable. She painted her wheelchair herself, a beautiful lavender hue that made her eyes sparkle. It wasn't just a mobility device, it was part of her. She even named it Lilac Lightning. My wife, Grace, and I bought the house on Sycamore Lane with one purpose: to give Maya the kind of safe, loving neighborhood she deserved. Willow Crest was advertised as family first, community focus. That was the tagline. And that's when we met Judith Coleman, our first and loudest welcome committee. Judith wasn't the HOA president, but she might as well have been. She walked the neighborhood like she owned it, clipboard in hand, her smile tight and her teeth always slightly gritted. She was the kind of person who judged a family by the length of their grass or the symmetry of their hedges. She noticed things, remembered things, filed reports. At first, it was small stuff, passive-aggressive comments wrapped in niceties. "Such a sweet girl," she said to Grace one day, eyeing Maya's wheelchair. "Though, I do wish you'd consulted the HOA palette. Lavender clashes horribly with our spring floral schemes." Grace blinked. "Excuse me?" "Oh, nothing," Judith chirped. "Just keeping things tidy, you know. Aesthetic cohesion helps property value." We thought it was harmless. We smiled politely, ignored it, and focused on getting Maya settled, her therapy, her school routine, her art classes. But the comments escalated. 2 weeks later, we received our first written notice, an HOA warning letter about unauthorized exterior decor. It specifically mentioned the disruptive color scheme of mobility equipment visible from the public road. Judith had taken a photo of Maya wheeling down our driveway and filed it as a violation. I laughed when I first read it. It had to be a joke. But Grace didn't laugh. She looked afraid. "She's serious," she whispered. "And she's not going to stop." Greg Hughes, the actual HOA president, was no help. A quiet man with a receding hairline and a voice like wet tissue paper, he seemed genuinely uncomfortable whenever Judith spoke at meetings. When we brought up the absurdity of policing a child's wheelchair color, he mumbled something about uniformity and precedent. Maya remained oblivious, at least at first. She kept painting butterflies on her wheels, kept rolling up and down the block with chalk, leaving little lavender hearts on the sidewalk. She told us she wanted to be in the summer parade. "I want to show people," she said, "that even if you're in a wheelchair, you can still sparkle." I remember thinking, God, yes. Let her sparkle. Let her have this. The second notice came 2 weeks before the parade. It wasn't just a warning. It was a final request. Repaint the wheelchair to a neutral tone, or face fines. I held that letter in my hands and felt something inside me split open. We weren't just dealing with neighborhood politics. This was darker. Personal. We wrote back. We refused. And that's when the threats began. Grace found our trash can tipped over, drenched in paint. Someone slashed the tires of my truck. One night, Maya's school backpack was left out in the rain, its contents soaked, ruined. Judith never admitted to anything. But the eyes from her window always followed us. Her smile never reached her eyes. Still, we didn't think it would go beyond intimidation. We didn't think she would actually, but you know how that ends. We stayed because we believed justice would protect us, that people like Judith only went so far, that no one would dare harm a child in public. We were wrong. The signs were there. We just didn't know how to read them at the time. A week after the second HOA notice, our mailbox was stuffed with crudely folded flyers titled "For a Uniform Community." It was Judith's handwriting, bold, neat, mechanical. The flyer demanded that all neighborhood items visible from the street, including lawn decor, patio furniture, and mobility accessories, adhere to approved earth tone standards. At the bottom, in all caps, "No exceptions." I called Greg Hughes. "Did you approve this?" He stammered. "Well, we have to listen to all voices." "Are you telling me she has the right to target a 9-year-old? He went silent. That weekend, we noticed something chilling. Every kid in the neighborhood stopped playing near our house. Their bikes no longer zipped past our lawn. Maya's friend from across the street, Riley, suddenly stopped waving. Her mother pulled her away when Maya tried to greet her. "She's poisoned them," Grace said. "Judith has made us the enemy." It was hard to argue. A coldness had settled over our cul-de-sac like fog. Subtle glances. Curtains drawn when we stepped outside. Whispers that died the moment we came near. One night, we heard tapping, soft and irregular, on the side of the house. I rushed out with a flashlight and found it, a rock-painted beige, lying in the grass. And on the sidewalk, written in chalk, "You don't belong here." The next day, the police came, but not to investigate. Instead, they handed us a citation for public defacement of sidewalk property under Willow Crest HOA guidelines. The HOA had filed it after Judith sent them photos of Maya's own chalk drawings. Grace cried. I fumed. Maya just looked confused. "But I thought the butterflies made people happy," she whispered. "I wanted to burn the whole system down." Detective Linda Owens entered our story the next day, not as a cop, but as a parent. She was helping organize the summer parade and had come to ask if Maya would lead the Hope and Courage section. She'd seen Maya's sidewalk art and thought her story was inspiring. I told her what had been happening. To her credit, she didn't dismiss it. "HOA politics can get ugly," she said, "but I've got your back." Linda's presence brought a flicker of light. But not for long. That night, our Ring camera caught footage. Judith in her gray cardigan, walking past her house just after midnight. She paused at our mailbox, took something out of her coat, and slipped it inside. The next morning, we found a bullet wrapped in a lavender ribbon. The police finally opened a report. Linda filed it herself. But we knew, unless something visible, undeniable happened, Judith would walk free. And then, as if it couldn't get more surreal, the HOA posted a new amendment. The HOA posted a new amendment on their website, effective immediately. All participants in Willow Crest sanctioned events must conform to HOA aesthetic codes. Participants could be disqualified or removed for violations. We knew it was aimed at Maya. And still, we refused to back down. That week, Judith showed up at our doorstep unannounced, holding a can of brown paint. She didn't knock, just stood there waiting. When Grace opened the door, Judith lifted the can and said, "I thought I'd give you a chance to correct this yourself. It's approved shade number 4. It'll only take a few minutes." Grace didn't flinch. "If you step on this porch," she said quietly, "I swear," but Judith cut her off. "Do it for your daughter," she said coldly. "Wouldn't want her to be embarrassed. Or worse, excluded." That was it. We filed for a restraining order. It was denied, lack of physical threat, they said. Detective Linda Owens did manage to increase patrols, but we all knew it wasn't enough. 2 nights before the parade, I found Maya sitting alone in her room, quietly rubbing a cloth and a bottle of nail polish remover over the armrest of her wheelchair. "I was going to try to take it off," she said softly. "The color. If it makes people mad." I dropped to my knees in front of her. "Maya," I said, "never. You hear me? Never change for people who are scared of you." She nodded slowly, but I could see it, the fear, the weight of it pressing down on her small shoulders. The parade was coming, and Judith wasn't done. By the week of the event, Willow Crest had become a place split in two. On one side were the silent spectators, our neighbors, people we once waved to every morning, who now glanced away or hurried inside when we passed. On the other were the quiet sympathizers, those who disagreed with Judith but didn't have the courage to say so out loud. And then there was us, Maya, Grace, and I, standing in the middle of it all, painted as troublemakers, as attention seekers, even as activists trying to turn a peaceful community into a battleground over political correctness. The parade was the final spark. Every summer, Willow Crest hosted its Grand Independence Week parade. Families decorated bikes, dogs wore sunglasses, kids marched in miniature military uniforms, and parents waved from curbs with lawn chairs and lemonade. But this year, the HOA introduced something new, a mandatory uniform participation form with a clause that read, "Participants may not display unauthorized colors or branding inconsistent with HOA visual policy. Repeated violations may result in ejection or ban from future community events." It didn't mention Maya by name, but it might as well have. Grace went straight to Greg Hughes. Not to plead this time, but to confront. "You know this is targeting a child," she said. Greg shifted in his seat. "Judith believes." "I don't care what Judith believes," Grace snapped. "Do you think a child's wheelchair is a threat to the community image?" Greg blinked, then whispered, "You should repaint it." That was the moment Grace lost faith in all of them. I tried talking to other parents. Some nodded politely. Some changed the subject. Only one stood with us, Mrs. Alvarez, an elderly widow who lived 3 houses down. "She reminds me of my sister," she said one afternoon, watching Maya from her porch. "People used to say her cane made her look weak, so she painted it gold. She walked with pride." Mrs. Alvarez promised to walk beside Maya in the parade, the only one who did. The rest of the HOA doubled down. The neighborhood bulletin board featured a printed statement from Judith. Willow Crest is a community of standards, not exceptions. If we allow one violation, we open the door to many. Let's preserve what makes our home orderly and safe. Orderly. Safe. They were using those words to describe conformity, to justify cruelty. Maya, meanwhile, had grown quiet. Her art supplies sat untouched. Her laughter came less often. One day, she asked if she could wear a beige sweater to blend in better. Grace and I looked at each other, hearts breaking. "No," I said gently. "You'll wear your favorite dress, the lavender one with the stars." "But Karen," she started. "Let me worry about Karen," I told her. 2 nights before the parade, I found a brown paint swatch smeared across our garage door. Spray painted in sloppy black letters. "Go back to where you belong." I stayed up that night with a baseball bat in one hand and my military-issue flashlight in the other. They didn't come back. But the next morning, the HOA delivered one final warning, a private letter, hand-delivered, signed by Judith and co-signed by Greg. "We recommend the Bellamy family consider withdrawing from parade participation in the interest of community harmony." They wanted silence. Instead, I bought a lavender flag and mounted it to Maya's chair. "I'm scared, Dad," Maya whispered the morning of the parade. "I am too," I said. "But courage isn't about being unafraid, sweetheart. It's about doing it anyway." We arrived at the parade lineup to hushed whispers and averted eyes. Some turned their backs. But Detective Linda Owens was there, standing tall in uniform. "You're leading the courage section," she said. "Maya, you ready, butterfly?" Maya nodded, just barely. Mrs. Alvarez stood beside her in a bright floral shawl, holding her hand. Across the street, Judith stood on her porch, dressed in beige from head to toe, staring, judging. But for the first time, she looked unsettled. Grace leaned in. "Do you see her hands?" I looked closer. She was gripping something behind her back, something long, black, metallic. A case. My breath caught. Linda noticed it too. Her smile faded. One hand went to her belt, resting near her service weapon. The parade was about to start. The trumpets blared. Maya rolled forward, and Judith disappeared into her house. The morning of the parade had that quiet tension you feel before a storm, the kind of stillness that makes even the wind seem hesitant. Grace woke early and ironed Maya's lavender dress, carefully smoothing the ruffled stars along the hem. I adjusted the new flag we'd attached to the back of her wheelchair, a custom lavender pennant that read, "Roll with courage." Maya barely touched her breakfast. Her fingers fidgeted with the corner of her placemat, and her eyes kept drifting toward the front window. "Do you think she'll be there?" she asked. We didn't have to ask who she meant. "I don't know," I said honestly. "But she won't stop you. That I promise." At 9 a.m. sharp, the Willow Crest Parade assembly began. The streets had been swept clean. Decorative banners hung from the lampposts. Children gathered in clusters, waving tiny flags and posing for pictures. Parents smiled politely. But even from a distance, you could feel it, the eyes on us, on Maya. Some turned away quickly when we walked past. A few offered a forced smile. One whispered something to her husband and shifted her chair, so her back faced Maya directly. Grace leaned into me. "They're not scared of her," she whispered. "They're scared of losing their perfect little illusion." Detective Linda Owens waved us over to the start of the Hope and Courage Division, a small section behind the high school marching band and just ahead of the volunteer emergency team. "You good?" she asked, adjusting her sunglasses. Maya nodded, her small hand gripping the armrest. A voice crackled in Linda's earpiece. She stepped aside to respond. That's when I saw Judith. She stood across the street near her manicured rose bushes, dressed in muted tan slacks and a beige cardigan. Her lips were painted the same taupe shade as the HOA pamphlets. She looked like a statue, frozen, unreadable. But then I noticed what she was holding. Not a clipboard. Not a purse. A rectangular black case, the kind used for photography gear. Or something else. Linda saw it too. Her posture shifted. Her hand moved closer to her belt, fingers grazing her radio. I started to step forward, but Grace caught my hand. "No scenes," she whispered. "Not here. That's what she wants." I exhaled slowly. The parade marshal raised a megaphone. "Parade participants, we roll in 5 minutes." Children began waving. Streamers danced in the breeze. The brass band behind us played a warm-up note. Maya adjusted her seat and looked up at me. "Ready?" I crouched beside her. "More than ready." The parade began with applause. The high school band took the lead, followed by color guards, and then our division. Maya, front and center, rolled forward with her lavender flag flapping in the breeze. At first, things felt good. People clapped. A few cheered. Mrs. Alvarez tossed confetti from her satchel. One young boy even stepped off the curb to hand Maya a paper flower. But when we turned the corner onto Sycamore Lane, our own street, that's when it happened. Judith was no longer on her porch. She had crossed to the other side, standing near the community entrance, half shaded by a row of hedges. The black case lay open on the ground beside her, and in her hands a rifle. A long-barreled, scoped rifle, military style. Time slowed. I shouted. Grace screamed. Linda moved like lightning, hand going to her sidearm, but we were too far. Judith raised the rifle to her shoulder. Maya rolled forward, smiling unaware. Then, asterisk crack, asterisk. A single shot ripped through the air, and everything went silent. The sound wasn't like in the movies. No echo. No dramatic music. Just sharp, ugly, and final, like the snapping of something sacred. For a moment, no one moved. The brass band faltered mid-note. The clapping stopped. Even the wind seemed to freeze.